Thank you for coming.
Let me go over here.
It's great to be here. You are here as part of what we call the Rabbi Sam Silver Controversial Issues series. My dad was the founder of this congregation. He was a very skilled debater. He involved himself in discussions with all types of people. He even debated Mayor Kahane with the JDL. He debated the founder of humanistic Judaism, who was an atheist, Wine, and he believed that it was a good idea to talk to each other. So that's what we're doing. We're talking to each other. We're going to do so in a friendly, civil way. I've known Mike for a while, so I have no doubts that this conversation will be civil as far as we're concerned, and hopefully everyone else. We will talk about issues that tend to divide people, and we're going to demonstrate tonight that we can disagree agreeably. If you're not capable of that, then you can take your comments somewhere else. But here, every comment goes, every viewpoint is tolerated, but hostility and anger and vitriol is not welcome. So as long as we have two purposes. One is to help understand how the other side thinks. Usually we just yell at each other and talk to each other, but we don't really get anywhere. We're going to figure out and understand how the other side thinks. Not that I represent all people on my side or Mike on his side, but just another point of view. And we're also going to demonstrate for the whole world, this is being videotaped, for the whole world, that it is possible to disagree agreeably, and that we need to learn to get along, and that there's no reason why we can't respect each other even though we don't hold the same view. That's the purpose, and thank you for supporting this event. So what we're going to do is we're going to have each one of us chat or share our views for about 10 minutes. Then we're going to have the other person go and straighten out the other person. Mike is going to straighten me out and tell me where I went wrong. I'll straighten him out a little bit about where I think he might have some room for improvement on his thinking. And then, the most important thing, we're going to open it up to everybody here. Because in this room, there's a lot of really, really smart people. And so we're going to open it up to discussion from everybody. And then we will take about 5 minutes to conclude. So we do things very informally here. We don't need a moderator because we're both moderates. At least in our tone. In our views, maybe not. But so we don't need anyone to moderate us. We're already moderated. If there is somebody who feels like keeping track of time, we don't have any objection to that. If somebody wants to be a timekeeper, we can do it. Otherwise, we'll just guesstimate. Okay, let me just introduce Mike, okay? Mike Essen is a conservative radio talk show personality. He is respected in this community as someone who has championed conservative views, and he also has another claim to fame. He's one of the only ones I know on the conservative Republican side who will agree to come and share his point of view and do so in a respectful way. That's a sad commentary, but it's true. Thank you.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for being here. I'd like to make a case for President Trump and against the Democrat Party. In order to do that, to talk about the president's accomplishments, I want to quote the late, great Ronald Reagan and talk about the three-legged stool. I want to talk about his economic accomplishments, social issues-wise accomplishments, and foreign policy accomplishments, and I will try to do that shortly. Economically, just to start, as unemployment rate is at its lowest, with blacks, Asians, women, every minority group in the book in history is the lowest in 50 years, since 1969. And those who think Obama should take the credit, not so fast. I will tell you why, and these are also some of President Trump's accomplishments. He rolled back over 200, at least, or 2,000 Obama regulations. He brought tons of manufacturing jobs in. When Obama said he could wave a magic wand and do so, Donald Trump did it himself. The individual mandate, which was crippling the economy and crippling people and hurting our healthcare system is now gone. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which he passed, which the left thought was Armageddon, is 80% of the people got a tax cut, not just the wealthy. And in California, the People's Republic of California, it is working. Let's go to social issues now. The Johnson Amendment, in case any of you don't know what that is, that prevents people who are of faith, we heard Barry a lot, from speaking publicly about their views. That is now gone. Title X funding, which goes to abortions, my tax dollars to kill babies, is now gone now.
Oh, thank God.
Also, he has reversed Obama's ridiculous executive order to prevent people just on SSA from buying guns. People have the right to protect themselves. He's a Second Amendment champion, and that is the truth. Foreign policy is really the area I'm most impressed, and I want to share why with you. While President Obama called ISIS the JV League team and would not even refer to radical Islam, the ISIS caliphate is now history under President Trump. While Bush and Obama and so many other presidents promised to bring the embassy in Israel to its rightful capital, Jerusalem, as a Jew, I say thank you to President Trump for doing that. As is Kufi and AIPAC and Benjamin Netanyahu and many other Jewish leaders. The Golan Heights is now Israeli territory. Also, we are respected in the world. We are feared. Before, when the last president gave an anti-American book to Hugo Chavez, we're talking now about invading Venezuela. We have invading Venezuela on the table because they're starving their citizens. Also, the horrendous Iranian nuclear deal, which Iran violated and they were in charge of, is now scrapped. Also, we have talks with North Korea. We don't know what's going to happen, but we feel safer now that we have a Trump involved and somebody who kowtows to the enemy. I want to talk about the Democrats now. It's fair I do that. They have gone from bad to worse. I was registered as a Republican in 1989. I never thought I'd say this, but I missed the Democrat Party of 1989. They went from the horrible idea of abortion to killing children right next to the mother. They went from the horrible idea of comprehensive immigration reform
Sin is progressive.
to open borders and abolishing ICE, which would opposing the border wall, and embracing sanctuary cities where Ron DeSantis was tormented for doing so. We need to protect our country. When Kristen Nielsen had a 5-star emergency rating for a border wall, unfortunately many moderate Republicans and all the Democrats think the Green New Deal, which I'll get to in a second, which costs $92 trillion is okay, but $5 billion is too much for some reason. The Green New Deal, aka insanity, is taking over global warming, or aka climate change. The Green New Deal would replace buildings, 99% of cars, and put us into the Flintstones age. Also, there's a section in the Green New Deal which says if you are not able to work or willing to work, you get federal assistance.
Nice. Don't work.
As for Joe Biden, the frontrunner, a great song for his campaign would be Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand by Diana Ross would be very appropriate. This man has disgraced himself and doesn't take positions until recently, and that is that illegals have the same rights as citizens, which he admits, which is aka crippling the economy, as well as single-payer health care, which I will talk about right now. Obamacare was bad enough. You didn't keep your doctor. One of every 3 counties had only one insurer. I recently debated a gentleman for a single payer on my show. People in Canada and England are flocking here, and they cannot decide for themselves if they can have eye surgery, they have to wait 3 months. Sometimes they don't have enough MRI machines. And sometimes you can go blind or die under it. I'm not saying any politician is a savior. I'm not happy with everything the Republicans do. But this Democrat Party openly embraces socialism, as does Bernie Sanders. Well, what is socialism, if you're thinking? Socialism is not Canada. They have a socialized healthcare system. It is not socialized. Venezuela is pure socialism. People cannot eat or have any freedom there.
But they don't have guns.
And I want to talk about also the Mueller investigation, which I think Adam Schiff and Gerald Nadler are the modern day Joe McCarthy's. No collusion was the proof. It's not enough for them. They think this is an illegitimate president like they thought Bush was, and they're doing everything they can to destroy him. You don't have to like the guy, but don't tie up the country to do so. There is no proof and no reason for impeachment, which would tie up the country tremendously, and there's no reason for it. And progressives, you want Pence for 3 terms, think about that too. Also, they were embraced now from same-sex marriage to the Equality Act, and many of you may not want to hear this. This is a dangerous bill coming up, H.R. 5. This bill would allow puberty blockers to go over to be doctors to sell 11-year-old girls without the objections, over the objections of their parents. Also, I'm going to continue. Hold on.
It's very hot in here. I just lowered the, I lowered.
Yeah, we're turning up the heat with some of these arguments. I just want to say, everyone is doing very well so far, with a few exceptions. It didn't take too long before people were murmuring and speaking out during Mike's talk. That's
we didn't
not
understand what he said. We couldn't understand exactly what he said.
okay. It's possible that someone didn't hear what he said, but there's other people who are murmuring and saying things that know exactly what he said, and they're disagreeing with it while he's saying it. That's not proper. It's not appropriate. If you don't understand what Mike is saying, raise your hand. He'll ask you, and then afterwards, you can. He'll be glad to clarify. But if you would, let him talk for 10 minutes. I've been keeping track. All right. Before I started the soliloquy, he had 3 minutes left, and if he wants to take 4 or 5, that's good too. But keep on behaving the way you are, and everybody give him some respect. You'll probably disagree with something he says. You might disagree with something I said, but let us speak. Yes, go ahead. You want to ask something?
Yes, I would like him to repeat what he just said because I did
Go
not
ahead.
hear.
All right, thank you.
Fair enough. The Equality Act, the dangerous bill that is being proposed, would allow puberty blockers being sold to children by doctors at the age of 11 over the objections of their parents.
Use your
Also,
imagination.
what it would also do is it would punish faith-based adoption agencies who refuse to give to same-sex couples, which in Philadelphia had many kids homeless and without parents. Another thing it would do, without talking about this too much, is it would stifle free speech and mandate a single viewpoint. And I find this bill very dangerous. I remember growing up with the Democrats. There were moderates. Who remember Sam Ervin here? Sue Jackson, Joe Lieberman. Those days are over. If Hillary Clinton is a moderate, I play for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't. And thank God we have a president here who is willing to stand up to the world for people, but for people who for the people in the economy. And I'll mention one other thing. He signed a veterans bill, which no president has done, which prevents abuse to veterans and helps veterans very tremendously. I wish other presidents had the gumption Trump had. My theory is, liberals hate him because he keeps his promises, and conservatives love him because he keeps his promises. Love him or hate him, he is the most, he made apathy a word we all forget, which I also give him credit for. Or do I? I do. But he is not the only conservative out there. Many of you do not support a group I belong to, the National Rifle Association. Let me talk about the controversy that's going on right now.
You're going over your time, but that's okay. Go
I
ahead.
won't.
That's all right.
Very
Go ahead.
quickly.
Take a minute or two. Go ahead.
The controversy is over semi-automatic weapons. I want to say this. Dom Rasso, who was a Navy SEAL, said that the AR-15s are the most effective weapons for protection. In 1994 to 2004, the DOJ of the Bill Clinton semi-auto ban said it was a failure. The great social experiment failed. I yield my time to Barry Silver.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And I do want to thank Mike for coming here and giving a very eloquent defense of the president. He's one of the bravest guys I know. Anyone who would dare to try to defend President Trump, my yarmulke is off to them. They're a brave soul. And he did a pretty good job, a very good job, trying to do what I consider to be the impossible. So congratulations on that. And I thank everybody for being respectful.
Anything anymore, you know?
You done? Yes?
What's a puberty block?
I'm speaking. Can you wait till I'm done? We'll get there. Let me just point out a few things about what Mike said. He stands up to the world. He does to some of the world. If you say something bad about him, he'll stand up to you and argue. If you flatter him, he'll support you. It doesn't matter who you are. He stands up to the world, but not to ruthless dictators. Those people he loves. He actually loves the dictator of North Korea who murdered a Jewish idealist, Otto Warmbier, and then sent us the bill to pay for his medical bill. He said he's in love with him. How sad, how pathetic that the leader of the free world is in love with a ruthless dictator. But you can see why. Birds of a feather flock together. He loves the dictator in Russia. If you don't believe me that he fawns all over dictators, the proof is in the Putin. He loves Putin. He believes him over the entire defense agency, who he refers to as Nazis. I mean, not only is it an insult to the people who died in the Holocaust to refer to other people as Nazis willy-nilly, which is trivializing the Holocaust and the horror of the Nazis, but to take the entire Defense Department and then to say you believe Putin or the dictator in Korea over them just because they roll out the red carpet for you, it's pathetic. It's disastrous. He loves Saudi Arabia. You don't have to wonder why. He told us. Because they've made him millions of dollars. You could murder a journalist. You could launch vicious wars in Yemen. You can treat women as if they are commodities. Doesn't mean a darn thing to him. Say something nice about Trump, he'll say something nice about you. And I do take to heart what Mike said about Mr. Biden. He thinks he's a little too touchy-feely. Well, I'm sure that Mike, if he doesn't like Biden touching someone's shoulders, probably really doesn't have much use for a guy who grabs women's body parts and their sexual areas and then brags about it and then denies it. Can you even put the two in the same category? I mean, the hypocrisy of suggesting that there's something wrong with Biden when you have a guy who openly brags that he runs a contest, a beauty contest, and then goes and looks at women who are underage when they're not clothed and then brags about it. And then you have the nerve to complain about Joe Biden?
Yeah, really.
It's really incredible. But we understand why. It's all been explained to us by Donald Trump. If you're wondering, how is it that someone can sit here and defend such abysmal, immoral behavior? Someone who's a pathological liar. President Trump explained it.
Brought me here. Wait, that's
He said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and my followers, they'll follow me anywhere. I can do anything and they'll follow me. Well, not all of us. Not all of us are in the ranks of the deluded. And I have more confidence in Trump supporters than Trump does, because I believe that they are still accessible to reason and the rational mind, and that's why I'm glad to have Mike here and Republicans here, because I do not think that Donald Trump represents the Republican Party. He does not represent America. He represents the worst. He appeals not just to his base, he appeals to the base instincts of his base. And the base instincts of America. Imagine a person who would actually use as a slogan that was used by anti-Semites to keep us out of World War II and side with the Nazis. The America First movement, championed by Lindbergh and championed by others who said, the heck with the Jews, we don't care about them, stay out. He used that as a slogan. How shameful. But can you really be surprised? He has a picture of the worst, most horrific, notorious president. A person who is every bit as evil as the dictators that he loves, the dictators that have no use for women's rights and the free press. Andrew Jackson, a guy who is best known for the Trail of Tears, a guy who said to the Supreme Court, like the president does, go ahead, let's see you enforce it. A guy who thumbs his nose at every other branch of the government because he doesn't believe in democracy. He believes in one-man rule and demagoguery and dictatorship. A man who says that President Jackson is his ideal of a president. A man who's the only one who can claim in the United States that he authorized a death march of Native Americans, marching them into Oklahoma, dying on the way, taking their property, going and doing the worst possible thing in America. And he's his role model? A guy who led the Trail of Tears? Well, now you know why we're on a trail of tears right now. He has no use for women.
Really?
He treats Mother Earth and Lady Liberty the same way he treats all the other women in his life. He abuses them, he discards them, he exploits them, and then he moves on. But there's no planet B. Mother Earth is not going to be replaced. He can't just find another wife. He can't just exploit her and then find another planet. There's no planet B. And to suggest that the worst climactic situation, the worst climactic disaster, a catastrophe happening in slow motion, the worst disaster since the dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago, is a hoax of the Chinese, dayenu. That is reason enough to have the man impeached and put into a mental asylum. Yes, a mental asylum. A man who tells lies over and over again, who has absolutely no regard for the truth, a man who is cherished and loved by the Republican Party because he represents everything they love: money, greed, selfishness. A person who worships and idolizes the gun. A person who thinks that the way to solve the problems with gun violence is more guns. A person who thinks the way to solve the healthcare problem is less healthcare. A person who has no regard for the health care of others. A person who's a notorious cheater on the golf course, who takes the ball of the person who won his club championships and replaces it and throws it in the water after his went in and then says he won. You can tell all about a person by how they play tennis and golf. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know any more. So I am appealing to the Republicans. There are good Republicans, and there are good qualities in the Republican Party. And I'm not defending the Democratic Party and all they do either. I've had it out with the Democratic Party many, many times. The ideals of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, reflect the best in Jewish and religious ideals. But they are not living up to those ideals. And finally, let me just finish with this. Oh, I actually have a few more minutes, but let me just take a minute or two. Trump claims that his favorite book is the Bible. Again, dayenu. That's enough. It's enough reason to have him impeached. Is it even remotely possible that he's even read a word of it? The Bible that he's talking about says it is easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy person to get into heaven.
But you're not.
Could that even remotely possibly be his favorite book? A guy who openly brags about how rich he is and wants to make everyone else rich? Jesus said repeatedly, if you want to be my follower, take all of your possessions and sell them and live as an acolyte. He said, don't think about the morrow. Give everything you have away. He is the antithesis of Jesus. He is the literal Antichrist if you're a Christian. Jesus said, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He doesn't just live by the sword. A semi-automatic weapon is far more ferocious than a sword. He never met a weapon he doesn't like. Jesus said, help the poor. Jesus believed in V'ahavta et ger kamocha. Love the immigrant as yourself. It's in the Torah, which Jesus said he believed every word of. Love the immigrant as yourself. He puts the babies in cages and says that the doors in his heart is closed. Now you can differ with him on immigration. You could say we can't let everybody in, and I agree with that. But to suggest that you're following the ideals of the Bible by taking people who are fleeing for their lives and just closing the door and separating them, it's outrageous. It has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. And the fundamentalist Christians that are following him should be deeply ashamed. He has discredited not only them, but everything they stand for. And the same thing goes for the conservative Jews who support this man. This man goes against every Jewish ideal there is, including the one that says, and nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Finally this, if you want to understand how Trump works, how his mind works, take a balloon, and this is from Sam Harris. Blow up the balloon. Hold it at the end, raise it to the ceiling, and then let go. Watch what happens. That's Trump's mind. It goes all over the place, uncontrollable. You don't know where it's going to go next, and that's what he's doing to our country. It's a shame, it's a scandal, and we should not accept it. And the Republican Party, most of all, should not allow itself to be dragged down. McCarthy, yes. The Republican Party supported McCarthy, and by the time they woke up, the party was decimated and disgraced. And the exact same thing is happening now. Mike, straighten me out. Five minutes each.
For starters, I love the way Barry talked about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I'll get to the other issues momentarily. Joe Biden was fondling young women who were underage. Donald Trump told the joke about Access Hollywood and never talked about women who were underage. But I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
Thank you. He talking about dictators of the world. This is conservative foreign policy in America first. Not that he loves them. Please understand this. Anybody with a sane mind, including Donald Trump, including Ted Cruz, including Joe Biden, including Bernie Sanders, I don't know about that, would love it if everybody would just put down their weapons, sing Kumbaya, and be free. But we take care of our own children before we take care of other countries. He does not love Kim Jong-un. He does not love the head of Saudi Arabia. Foreign policy is not consistent. And I don't see where he who condemns Hamas, he who condemns Maduro, loves dictators. Doesn't make sense to me that he would love those people if he never met a dictator he didn't like. We are doing it for business purposes, and it's America first. He's used that slogan over and over again. Buy America, America first. I cannot, regarding the Barry statement about two reasons why he should be impeached. Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, because he does not support climate change. You can support the public elects people based on their positions, whether you like it or not. You have a right to run against climate change. That has no grounds for impeachment whatsoever. There's also, if he claims to be a Christian, I don't know what's in the man's heart. He claims to be. He has said many times, including the Values Voters Summit from the Fine Organization Family Research Council, Merry Christmas. And it is a Judeo-Christian nation. But as for Jews supporting him, I don't even see where Barry's coming from on this. Israel if Israel is gone, we're living Holocaust too. He is gone just from Israel alone, from Obama's Chamberlain attitude to his Churchillian attitude. With the Golan Heights, with moving the embassy to Jerusalem, with his great friendship with Benjamin Netanyahu, with him having building named after him by Netanyahu. It's incredible how he loves dictators and hates freedom. And it's interesting in Barry's opening statement, nothing about the economy was even mentioned. It's an economic record that is unprecedented in American history, in modern day history. But since Barry didn't mention, I can't refute his comments. As for the gun issue, I will repeat what I said. I am proud to be a member of the National Rifle Association, as is he. He is if he loves all guns, I don't know why he wants to ban bump stocks, which is contrary to some people outside the NRA who are more extreme. I don't know about much about Andrew Jackson, but if he could have made this a dictatorship with the art of the deal and the power he has, believe me, he would have done it already. And I see Joe McCarthy as Adam Schiff, not Donald Trump. There's no reason for impeachment. The hatred of this man is irrational. And guess what? He's getting reelected in 2020, I strongly believe. With the 22 stooges that are running, who all support the ideals I mentioned earlier, that doesn't resonate with independents or the American people. I don't trust the polls, but President Trump has kept his promises, and I yield back to Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, he said he'd build a wall and Mexico would pay for it. I don't see that happening. I think he lied. The only wall he's building is a wall between him and common sense, a wall between him and democracy. He did fulfill one campaign promise. He said he would unite the country, and he did. We're pretty much united against him. He's violated every single policy that rational people could possibly think of. He does not promote civility. He promotes servility. He does not. He is an embarrassment. He's a child in a man's body. I shouldn't even say that. It's insulting to all the children. The tweets and the nonsense and the petty, ridiculous narcissism of this man is it's embarrassing. As far as Israel goes, let me share with this audience. I do not agree with the Democratic Party on all of its issues. I strongly disagree with the thrust of the Democratic Party as I see it. Not all of them. They're very, very, very soft on radical Islam. And I believe that's why Trump got elected. I think that Trump did speak to something that was sorely missing in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is almost as clueless to radical Islam as the Republican Party is to fundamentalist Christianity and Christian nationalism and to global warming. They are completely blind on that. But the Democratic Party also, I don't agree with them. Regarding Israel, I think President Trump also is a strong supporter of Israel in his way. And I believe that certain things that he did, I agree with. I agree with the transfer of the capital and the embassy to Jerusalem. I agree with Jewish people in Israel having control of the Golan Heights. But I do not think that Trump is good for the Jewish people. If I did think he was good for the Jewish people marginally, but horrible on all the other issues, I still wouldn't support the man because I don't think there's a heck of a lot of difference. But I happen to think that he's abysmal for the Jewish people. Saudi Arabia is the incubator of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They sponsor madrasas all over the world to fawn over them and to support them and to walk into Saudi Arabia and to say, oh, you're doing a great job in the fight against terrorism. That's abominable. They are not. They are sponsoring terrorism, but because they make millions of dollars for him, he says that, okay, there's no greater threat to Israel and the West than Saudi Arabia, and therefore no greater threat to Israel and the West than Donald Trump, someone who loves Saudi Arabia because they make him money. His whole policy is based on who can make him the most money. And that's a very, very scary thought. Yes, he transferred the embassy to Jerusalem, but when he did so, he appointed 2 ministers, each one of which said that the Jewish people are not going to heaven. because they do not believe in Jesus. You can sit down, sir. I got another minute left. Sit down.
5 minutes.
Sit down.
Oh, he said you were off the awful time.
Okay, thank you.
You might be.
He also is the only president who on International Holocaust Day didn't mention the Jews, and when they asked him why, said, well, a lot of people died in the Holocaust. He's the only president that ever said there's good and bad people on both sides and there's some good white nationalist people. He's the only president who has fostered and sponsored vicious anti-Semitism and vicious attacks one against the other. So I believe that he is the worst thing that could possibly happen not only to Jews, but to all minority groups. I now will allow and permit and welcome any questions from the audience. Right here. Just say your name and then state your question. You have a minute to state a question, a statement, or a combination thereof.
Puberty blockers are what stop young kids from becoming more sexually active and growing too quickly.
Is it a pill?
I'm in a temple. Excuse me. I'm trying to be a little cleaner here. Emotional hormonal growth will be stunted, or they will grow too quick. The 11-year-old will be a 14-year-old, basically. With that, thank you.
I'm talking now as a nurse. Basically, what the puberty blockers are designed to do is to affect children who want to be trans. Okay. In the case of a boy who wants to become a girl, he would be given puberty blockers to prevent him from further growth as a boy into a man. In the case of a girl who wants to become a boy, it would be the same thing. It would prevent her from going into puberty and developing as a woman.
Regarding the semi-automatic weapons, miss, and thank you so much for your questions. I pointed out earlier, and we have to be practical about this. In 1994 to 2004, President Clinton banned semi-automatic weapons, and his department, this isn't Mike Essen talking, said it was a colossal failure and the gun crime went up. So this great experiment that the left is going for failed. And it's not my hobby, by the way, so don't worry about that. Regarding the popular vote, we all know that. We have the Electoral College, like it or not, and that's what we go by. So you can work the next election on that one.
I plan on it.
I give you credit for that. Everybody should work on any cause they want to. Regarding private schools, because they're better. And I support vouchers, as our great Governor Ron DeSantis does. And we should. I love the. And by the way, it's for kids in failing schools who need to achieve dreams. And it's worked in Arizona. It's worked in Florida. It's worked before in Florida. There was a documentary I saw, I'm a big movie buff, as some of you know, called Waiting for Superman, where people could not wait for the lottery to get into those schools in New York. It saved lives. That's my comment.
Let me just comment on that. As far as the public school system, yeah, sure. If you take a ton of money and you have a bunch of rich people and they pay for a private school, it's probably going to be better. But the bedrock of democracy and the way to level the playing field for all Americans is the public school system, which is why Trump hates it so much. Trump doesn't like equalizing the playing field. He's the guy who wakes up on third base and thinks he hit a triple. He's the guy who inherits a fortune and then loses it and says he's a great business guy. He's the guy who loses over $1 billion in 10 years and then says the art of the deal, and then he doesn't disclose his tax plans. This is a guy who's a big-time con artist and who just likes to take advantage and have the rich get richer and not have any equal playing field at all. The public school system, to demean it and say we should all go to private schools, where's all that money going to come from for private schools? We know that the basis and the way to achieve equality and justice in America is the public school system. Shame on him for trivializing it.
I'm somebody who wants to abolish the IRS, so I go for. I don't think you went far enough. We have to cut down on bureaucracy, sir. We're not. I mean, if you want to get more people to do that, that's your prerogative. It was not to hide taxes. It was nothing of any paranoid scheme. But there's too much, but if you want to cut the budget, there's many areas to cut it, and federal bureaucracy like the Department of Education under the worthless Jimmy Carter, and that would be two good areas.
Another height of immorality is to have someone who claims he's one of the richest people in the world and then bragging about how he doesn't pay taxes. But I just want it to sink in. Even the Republicans have to realize that if you don't pay taxes, you're not supporting our public schools. You're not supporting the police. You're not supporting the military. Even a Republican, even one who thinks that if President Trump shoots someone on Fifth Avenue, even they have to understand that to have someone like that as the commander-in-chief, chief of the military, when you don't support the military, has to be one of the most abysmal examples for the people and another impeachable offense. He doesn't want an IRS because he doesn't want someone to check out what he's doing. He wants all the rich people not to have to pay taxes because he doesn't believe in equality. And also, as far as the character assassination of trying to assassinate someone's character because they're an atheist, let me just say this publicly, that the vilification and the scorn upon atheists is one of the worst things that we could possibly do. I have as my heroes Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Dan Dennett, and Sam Harris, leading atheists in this country who have the audacity and the nerve to stand up to religious bigots and say, I don't believe. My belief is I do not believe in the biblical God, nor does the Reform movement, the Reconstructionist movement, or the Jewish renewal or humanist. I believe in an evolving concept of a creative power for good. And this man in the White House is the antithesis of everything that I believe in.
I will tell you what would easily cut the budget, and I'll tell you what to cut to do it. As Ted Cruz said, the alphabet soup. The Department of Education, which we can easily be funded in private, which is not abolishing public schools. I shouldn't have to pay for somebody in Montana when they know the needs we have. Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, Planned Parenthood, NPR, PBS. If you cut in the National Endowment for the Arts, if you cut all those organizations,
Let him speak.
then we would have a lot less of a budget. As for the students I think we have to give students an option. I think they have a right. The student loan system is a good one. It's not perfect, but I think what the problem is we have to reopen the banks. Obama tied up the banks so they couldn't not take student loans. But with this economy going booming like it is, I trust the college students will do well. Thank you.
Next question. Let me respond. I too am concerned about our country turning into a Venezuela. And I wish that our president had even an inkling of the Constitution. He defies the Constitution. He ignores the Congress. He thumbs his nose at them. He uses his Department of Justice to go after his enemies. He behaves like a dictator. He behaves as someone who has absolute contempt for democracy and for the people. That's an excellent question. I do appreciate the civil character of it. So thank you very much. I did mean to discuss the issues, but when the conversation went off on the Trump, I responded in kind. I do apologize. If I had the time, I'd be glad to expound upon the issues. But let me talk about the first issue which you mentioned, which is very important to me. And that is the failure, and I don't use this word lightly, the failure of the Democratic Party to stand up to radical Islam and to take it seriously, matched also by the Republican failure when President Bush said that the attackers on 9/11 hijacked Islam because the Quran only teaches peace, which it doesn't. Both parties have completely failed to understand the threat, but especially the Democratic Party today, especially when you have Democrats who are openly condemning and criticizing Israel and conflating it with anti-Semitism. And the Democratic Party has completely dropped the ball and failed. There were some, Congressman Deutsch did react against the Omar, but it's been too little and too late. I believe that the Democratic Party has gone off and can regain its soul when it says one thing. It should say that any person in the Democratic Party who is attacking Israel as a state, not their policies, as a state, should immediately have to undergo education on the issues and be told this, that in the Middle East, there's only one place where you can criticize the government and live to talk about it, and that is Israel. There's only one place, if you believe in women's rights, where you can be a woman and be free and equal, and that is Israel. There's only one place where you can criticize the government and live to talk about it, or worship as you please, which is why the holy places of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Baha'i are all in Israel, and they're all respected. Nowhere else in the Middle East does that happen, and the Democratic Party should challenge and repudiate in no uncertain terms these people who are saying these horrible things about Israel, and I think they've failed. And I am the first one to speak out against that. Regarding the other issues, I believe that the Democratic Party is clearly far closer to Jewish ideals than the Republican Party. A, Jews are taught, love the immigrant as yourself. Trump does not, and the Democratic Party does much more so. Let me leave Trump out of it for a minute. Judaism also says, Judaism is totally socialist. Judaism, we just read this, you might be surprised to hear. Judaism says in the Torah, when you have a field, you should not reap to the corners of your field. You should let the corners bare, and you should also, if you have a vineyard, don't pick up everything. Why? The immigrant and the poor should be allowed to walk onto your property and take what they need to feed themselves. This is something that is the complete opposite of what the Republicans are saying. The total antithesis. So if you like Jewish ideals, you have to believe in socialism. Jesus clearly believed in socialism. He said, sell everything you have. And when poor Ananias came in front of the Christian elders and didn't sell all of it, he left a little bit of private property for himself. He was stricken dead because he kept a little bit of private property. So socialism is something that's 100% consistent with Christian scripture. If you want to say, oh no, go back and read your Torah and the Bible. The other thing is on gun control. Jesus said, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. To suggest that the answer to guns is more guns. You can say it if you want, but please, don't say that in the name of Jesus. You're committing identity theft against this Jewish person by taking his words and turning it on its head and then claiming that you represent them. You do not. Israel is the epitome of the dream of the Jewish people. We finally achieved a Jewish state. And when the Jewish people, after 2,000 years of exile, achieved a Jewish state, they decided on what type of economic system they would have. And guess what? It's socialist. Okay? So Israel is a socialist country. Now, Israel does have democratic or capitalistic inclinations also, but Israel has socialized medicine. They have socialized education. They have socialized help for the immigrants. That because they have a neshama, a Jewish heart.
Drew, I thank you for your question and your comments. Let me make the distinction very clearly between the two countries. This is very important. Saudi Arabia does not have a bomb that they have publicly said will wipe the great Satan in Israel off the face of the earth. I'm not saying, nobody is saying in this country, maybe Rashid Tlaib, that we should emulate Saudi Arabia. But we need to protect ourselves and first so we don't die. And Israel so they don't wipe off the face of the earth with extinction. And that's what Iran does. And that's why I think you should at least give President Trump credit for ripping the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal to shreds. And I want to say something else. We've had dictatorships as allies throughout our whole history. We don't want to be like them. And it's funny how the left, who wants to be friends with Cuba all these years, who kowtows to Venezuela, your hero Barack Obama gave an anti-American book, suddenly is calling me out for saying Saudi Arabia is not like Iran. Find that interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, let me comment on what Drew said. First of all, again, I just have to say that I have the utmost respect and admiration for Drew. He's been a champion of protecting this planet for more years than probably anybody in the county, and the man he is my hero. But I do appreciate what he's saying about Saudi Arabia. What President Trump has done is he's skewed the minds of his followers to such an extent that you could have a Jewish person stand up and attack another Jewish person because they said that they have a problem with Saudi Arabia. Because Trump makes millions of dollars off of Saudi Arabia, not only is he a big fan of ruthless, vicious dictators, he's now convinced and brainwashed Jewish people to attack other Jewish people for pointing out the danger of Saudi Arabia. Whether Saudi Arabia is more or less dangerous than Iran is completely, utterly irrelevant. I believe with Mike Essen, it's irrelevant. But for Jewish people to defend Saudi Arabia, you have to look a little below the surface. It takes just a little bit of thought. Our president doesn't have it, but I know some of the supporters do. If Saudi Arabia is sponsoring the very madrasas that produce people like bin Laden, and warping their minds to turn human beings into killing machines. If Saudi Arabia is doing that, should we not be concerned? Or have Jewish people sold their very soul to Donald Trump, and whoever he likes, they like? As Jews, we should place Jewish survival and the survival of the Western world above who makes more money for Trump. And Saudi Arabia is a threat to the Western world.
I want to defend the conservative movement and the president about what Barry said about being the anti-immigrant party. I'm glad you pointed that out because that's a very important point. I have never heard an anti-immigrant comment. We're anti-illegal immigrant. And you cannot distinguish the difference. And I'm talking about anybody out there between somebody who busted their rear end to come to this country with documents, who was risking their lives, the people stuck in the border. You are morally blind. And that is why, and about the border, Trump promising to secure the border, I believe it was recently that a lot of senators like Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and a lot of moderates to liberals would not support his declaration. So it's not a broken promise. Barry, you have the mic.
I do want to thank you, Valerie, for asking a very intelligent, well thought out question. That's what I was hoping we would have also, not character assassination. So let me just say this. President Trump recently, at a rally, someone said something about, let's shoot the immigrants. And he laughed and supported that, and a whole rally of people were laughing about shooting immigrants. This is sad. This is very sad. This is our leader. This is something that should be denounced by Republicans. Of course it won't be, because whatever he does is fine. But rational people should denounce it. As far as what you're talking about, I agree with you. The policy of immigration has been badly handled by both parties, and to blame all of it on Donald Trump for many years, and to blame all of it on Donald Trump is absolutely wrong. However, as far as illegal immigrants, let me tell you what's illegal. The United States has certain treaty obligations. We have treaties dealing with refugees. I know. I worked at the Haitian Refugee Center. I know. It's illegal for a country to say, our border's closed, if you're fleeing persecution, you're fleeing from your life, too bad, we're sending you back. That is illegal. You have to give people fleeing for their lives a hearing, and you have to provide asylum. Here's what I think we should do. I think the United States should talk to its allies. I don't know if we have any left because Trump's alienated all of them, but we should talk to our allies and say, we have a problem. There's people fleeing from their lives, and there's horrible things going on in these 3 countries. The 3 countries that the president said we're going to cut our aid to. We should increase aid, work with the other countries, and say, look, we cannot take all these people in. We need to work something out so everybody can help take in people in the immediate present time and fix these countries with aid and with trying to get these countries straightened out. Let's work together and let's solve the problem. We, the United States, cannot take in all the immigrants. And for any person on the far left to say we should have no borders is outrageous, and that's part of the reason why Trump got elected. What we need to do is have sane, rational immigration policy. Most of the Democrats and most of the Republicans agree with that. That's what we need to do.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I believe we need to keep the pre-existing conditions. I like the state line characteristic. I supported the AHCA, which Donald Trump did propose. I think that would be excellent. But this is something I want to make very clear. When a sixth of the economy is taken over by the government, so we cannot choose our own doctors, but we are denied access to care, we have to wait hours and hours and hours and hours, and we can go blind or die. And by the way, if you go to the emergency room today for an operation, emergency, you are taken in this country. So I find that a false argument. Regarding what you were asking me to expand on, we have the greatest healthcare system in the world, even before Obamacare. Let me talk, please. I want to hear what you have to say, but I need to speak. I'm here for that purpose. It is not perfect, but people from Canada, people from all over come here for help. If you want a perfect healthcare system, you're not getting it.
What does that mean, pre-existing conditions? What do you mean by that?
Let me explain it. Diabetes,
Right?
stroke, diabetes are conditions that you are born with that you cannot.
But what about them? What do you do about them? What's your position? What's your
Sure.
What do you do?
There, I would make the government. The government should have to take that up, and many
Take
conservatives.
it up how? Do what?
Not an answer.
I'm not trying to find an answer. What do you do?
No. I'm trying to answer.
Go ahead.
It should just be law. Period.
What's the law?
I can write it that you have to accept people with pre-existing conditions. However, and I want to speak, please. That is no excuse to have the government take over the whole healthcare system and make it Canada,
Put insurance
Switzerland,
on
and
people
Finland
out.
went bankrupt because of single-payer healthcare, and the other Nordic countries are following, and Reuters reported that, not Mike Essen.
Yeah, okay. You can see that there's no coherent policy. What does this mean, pre-existing conditions? What about them? You had Trump and the Republicans for years saying they want to get rid of Obamacare. Even tonight, at this date, we still can't figure out what it would be replaced with. I don't really quite get what that means, pre-existing conditions. Let's just talk reality, okay? Let's talk reality. There's a whole bunch of people in the country who can't afford health care and they can't afford insurance. They don't have money for insurance or health care. According to the Republicans, they should die. There's no provision. Well, Mike said, there's no problem. They can just go into the emergency room. I had cancer, okay? If you wait with somebody who has cancer until they need to go into the emergency room, they're dead. Okay, most conditions, if you wait till the emergency room, they're dead. And it costs a lot more if you could fix them. To suggest that, hey, just wait till they go to the emergency room, it shows a complete detachment from reality or a heart that is long since dead. That's why every industrialized country in the world has single-payer health care. Now, you can say, well, people from Canada are coming over here. Yes, the wealthy ones do come over here because they want to get better care. But have you heard of any other country that has what we call universal health care? Have you heard of anyone saying, you know what, we like the American system better. We're going to toss out ours and go with the American system, where if you don't have money, you die. Or if you don't have enough money to pay your bills, you sell everything you have and you go bankrupt. Where everybody's an illness away from bankruptcy. Does that make any sense at all? At all? If you get cancer or a disease where you need to spend a lot of money, you're broke or you die. To suggest that there shouldn't be a universal healthcare system is to be completely off in left field. That's why Israel has it, and that's why we've never heard any other system that's been proposed to take its place.
First of all, this president does have a lot to do with the economy, and if you heard my opening statement, I very clearly addressed this point. Trump pulled back on tons of Obama's regulations, including and the environment, including business, including the gun laws, and including, and by the way, he brought 300% more manufacturing jobs around that than which Obama said he could wave the magic wand for. And the economic growth rate was about 2% under Obama. It's 3.2 now. And after 2 years, give it up, please.
No, let me just explain something. If at my house, I decided not to pay anyone to come and collect the garbage, and we didn't have to pay any taxes for that, we could do very well, but our house would be horribly dirty. If we allow companies to use the oceans and the rivers as their private sewers, if we allow companies to abuse their workers and not give them any rights, if we allow companies to destroy the planet, yeah, they'll make money. But is anybody happy with that? Is that the quality of life that they want? Sure. You can help the economy by letting companies run roughshod over the rights of people on the planet. But I don't think that's a good way to make money. I do agree with the comment that the economy shows the effects of policies long afterwards, so it's hard to pin it on anyone. But for anyone here, you know, what is really surprising to me is people call themselves conservative, but they don't want to conserve. What's beautiful and wonderful about this country, listen to America the Beautiful, sea to shining sea, the purple mountains. That's what makes this country, he wants to make this country great. Protect the planet and the beauty of this country. To destroy it and despoil it and contaminate it, and then say that you're patriotic, I cannot think of anything more unpatriotic than to destroy the natural beauty of this earth and instead trade it in for short-term gains for corporations. You also say, well, in the United States, we can't give health care to everybody. I am shocked to hear anyone, especially in a synagogue, say, we can't give health care to everyone. Do you mean to suggest that we live in a country where certain people don't have access to health care and you're okay with that? Have we sunk so low? You mean people, because they were born into a poor family, someone who worked hard all his life and gets a disease and now can't cover it? Are you saying some people don't have access? And what I want to know is, which ones? Which ones of us don't have access? I find that morally repugnant.
Barry, can I say something?
Yes.
Okay. We're not against health care for all, we're against Medicare for all. That's that simple.
Okay, that's not.
And I want to continue.
It's not simple. It's simple-minded.
I think I'm a pretty intelligent person. Thank you.
Well, what does that mean? If you're not against, if you're not.
Let me answer. I'm about to answer the question.
Go
Talk
ahead.
about it. It's not. That's not my answer. Please let me talk.
Okay.
We need to have a system which allows people to choose their own doctor, allows people to cross state lines with insurance, allows multiple insurance companies to create jobs in this country. And I want to tell you something. Medicare for all, and we don't need wait lines.
That's exactly what Medicare for
Well,
all
please
does.
don't interrupt me, Rick.
Go ahead, finish.
And we don't need wait lines outside the door for months and years before somebody can go blind or crippled. I don't need to have my humanity tested by saying that. And by the way, Israel is not a socialist country, neither is Canada. They have socialist policies, like we have the post office socialized in this country.
Just like the United States.
Same thing with us.
Please, no, Venezuela is a pure socialist country.
All right, go ahead.
And Bernie Sanders talks about universal health care, free college, spreading the wealth. Venezuela, here we come. Thank you.
Okay, wait. I just want to ask you a question, and then you can ask me a question.
Very good.
You said you believe that everyone should have access to health care. I think is what you said, right?
I believe everybody, not as a right, but I think, but I hope everybody does.
You hope they do. Okay. Well, some
Not
of
as a
us.
right.
I know. Well, you know what? If all you do is hope for it, but you don't have a policy to make it happen.
I told
it's
you
not
what it was
happening.
earlier. It was Trump's policy, the American Health Care Act.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us the policy. I'm still waiting. What's the what? You tell me your plan for everybody to have health.
The Essen health care plan
Go ahead.
will be proposed.
Go ahead. What is it? What is it?
Go back to what it used to be.
What is it?
I'm telling you.
Go ahead.
Go back to what it used to be. You cross state lines with insurance. More insurance. Allow the market, to the free market, to take care of itself. Allow people to choose their own doctor. Improve cures for diseases. Encourage people through tax breaks to get great projects, like the money projects, cure paralysis, or any cause they want, which would also save the economy, which would give people more access to health care in general. The Essen doctrine is, Essen is spoken.
Okay. You know, I know there's other questions, but I just have to ask a follow-up. Because you said, go back to what it used to be. What used to be is that if you didn't have money, you didn't have health care, you died. What used to be is that if you were poor, you didn't have health care. That's what used to be. So I'm still waiting. You say, well, I hope they have health care. I want them to have health care. I'm still waiting. Answer this question. So you have poor people. You have poor people, migrant workers. We have migrant workers here, right?
Correct.
We have poor people. They're working hard, 2 jobs. That they don't have enough money. They don't have enough money to pay for health insurance. All right, and they get a disease. They get sick. They need health care. What is your position? How do these people get access to health care?
There are many have options like Medicaid, like Medicare, and like many others. To have one option for everybody is absurd. It is bankrupting the Nordic countries. And I'm telling you something, if you do go to the emergency room and get help, it's not a callous policy. It would be callous if you said, turn them away. So that's my answer.
Okay, it's not, if you wait, as I said, if you wait till the time you get to the emergency room, it's too late. By the way,
That's the Uber
by the
stuff,
way,
not mine.
okay, by the way, you say Medicaid. I hate to, Medicaid. I hate to break it to you. Medicaid is socialism, okay? Medicaid is socialized medicine. So I'm glad we now have on tape that Mike agrees with socialized medicine. So we don't disagree. We don't disagree on socialized medicine. One of us just has the courage to call it that and to say it should be across the board and it should be a policy that makes sense instead of haphazard. The other one just says we shouldn't have socialized medicine, but then supports Medicaid.
Dianne Feinstein is the one example, and I believe a lot of them feel like she does. She just has the guts to say it. She said, if I could turn them all in, I would. The NRA teaches Eddie Eagle, which is an award-winning program, which tells kids, if you see a gun, stay away, don't tell it, just tell parents. The NRA had a law in Florida, which means if you leave your gun out, 5 years in jail and a whole fine, and it happens. They have never encouraged they're not responsible for any of the murders, nor they are linked to any groups that have been. They have severely explained that background checks, people slip through the system, like the LA killer, and like the Vegas killer, like the Orlando killer, all pass the background check. And this is the third time I'm going to say what I'm going to say. The semi-automatic weapons ban failed. Even if you think it's a good idea, it's not going to work. And Dom Rasso has warned everybody put together. A Navy SEAL said they are effective guns for protection. I'm proud to be a member of the NRA because victim disarmament is horrible, and NRA is more of a deterrent to crime than most police officers who have their full support. Thank you.
Let me respond to that. When I was a kid, I used to watch All in the Family, and Archie Bunker said, I know how to solve the hijackings on airplanes. We just arm all the passengers. And everybody laughed and thought it was pretty funny. But now we actually have people in D.C. who are suggesting the same thing. The United States, the original sin of America is the gun. We used it to slaughter buffalo and to wipe out Native Americans. We still worship the gun. It's a stone-cold idol that people worship, and instead of realizing that it's a threat to us, we worship the gun and say, oh, we need more guns. That's going to be our savior and our protector. Those countries that have lots of guns have lots of murders. Those countries that have outlawed these weapons don't. First of all, hunting is against Jewish law. Jews say that if you need to take the life of an animal for food, say a blessing, say a prayer, and spare its any type of suffering. But to kill an animal for enjoyment, that's sick. It's sick, it's demented, and it is not in keeping with Jewish law. I don't know about Christian law, but it's not in keeping with Jewish law. How somebody can get pleasure out of taking the life of an animal is just beyond me. And please, if you want to do it, do not call it a sport. It is not a sport, it's a slaughter. A sport is when two willing contestants engage in a recreational activity to see who can win. It is not blowing away an innocent animal and killing it. That is not a sport. If you want to do it, call it what it is. It's killing and it's slaughter of innocent animals. Secondly, I think the NRA should now stand for not respectable anymore. And anyone who takes money from them should be voted out. We should do a background check, not just on guns, but on Congress people. And if you take their money, we should take them out of office. Secondly, I don't particularly care what you call the weapons. I don't call if you want to call it a machine gun, an automatic weapon, a semi-automatic weapon. I don't particularly care. But law enforcement officers have said repeatedly, these vicious assault weapons have no place in civilized society. And we've reached a real low when we suggest that they should. I have not heard the president or the Republicans come up with any policy to explain what we're going to do to stop the 50,000 deaths that we have in this country and the school shootings and the mass murders that go on at will. I have not heard them come up with any policy. So I guess what they're saying is, get used to it, folks, because we have no response, just like we have no response to health care or anything else. As far as the Second Amendment goes, I believe in the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. It says that in order to have a well-regulated militia, people have the right to own a gun. And my belief is that anyone in the United States who belongs to a state militia should have the right to own a gun, and everyone else has no such right. And even the ones who do, it should be regulated. We're gonna follow up with a concluding statement from each one of us. We'll take a few minutes, and then we'll conclude. So, Mike, go right ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
Please listen respectfully.
I believe tonight we have had two sides, the liberal and the conservative. I believe I spoke a lot of facts, figures, and talked a lot about the economy. I believe Barry did some of that, but it was basically fueled by emotion, and occasionally with hunting and many other topics getting off topic. The bottom line is we have a choice in this country. To go to pure socialism like Venezuela, by the way, you're not socialized because we have a centralized military, or to go to back to keep this prosperous economy up, and to keep the policies up of our enemies fear us, our children are safer with armed guards in schools, and supporting the Second Amendment, which, by the way, I want to point something out. This is very important why the Second Amendment applies to the people. The militia at the time was people equate with the National Guard. There was no National Guard then, or else it would not be in the Bill of Rights. There's no other Bill of Rights that's even contested but the second. I say that conservatism has proven to be a success under Trump. Liberalism is almost gone, deemed to extreme leftism and socialism. Please support Trump 2020. And also, I'd like to meet and talk to a lot of you out there, and thank you for coming, and thank you, Barry.
What we're trying to do here, is to have civil discourse. And we're trying to promote civility, not servility, not where we're servile to some demagogue and just doing everything he thinks. I do appreciate both sides appearing. I definitely appreciate Mike Essen appearing. I think he did a really amazing job. I think it was great. I think that's exactly what we're looking for here. The division of the United States among political parties makes us weak. The division of Jewish people over politics is extremely divisive and destructive. We Jews are a very, very small minority. To start dividing up over politics is fatal to us. Why we have to argue over who's a bigger threat or whether this group is a threat? Can't we all, as Jews, agree that terrorism and regimes that support terrorism against Israel should be opposed and not welcomed, even if they happen to make our president rich? Can we not agree on that? Can we not agree also that fundamentalism in Christianity is dangerous? Fundamentalism in Islam is dangerous, and both of them are fueled and instigated by fundamentalist Jews who express the insane idea that the genocide of the Torah is God's word, and therefore it metastasizes into fundamentalist Christianity and Islam, in which they're saying that their God orders them to kill non-believers. Can we not see that we have met the enemy, and the enemy is us? that the violence in Jewish scripture, in which God not only permits but orders Jews to commit genocide, is wrong. It's an error. It's not God's word, and it should be repudiated, not explained or rationalized. And then we would have the moral footing to challenge it in other people's scriptures as well. Cannot all Jews agree that we should be rational and reasonable? That's what this dialogue is about. I thank Mike Essen for engaging in this dialogue. He's welcome here anytime. The Republicans, the conservatives, Christians, non-Jews are welcome here. I do not speak on behalf of the Democratic Party. I've criticized the Democratic Party tonight, repeatedly in the past, and I will continue to do so because I place idealism and America above any particular politician, any particular political party. And I hope all Jews will do that, to place Jewish ideals and American values above any allegiance we have to any people. It is harmful to us.